We all know that learning and studying are important tools to use to upgrade our lives. We spend our first 15 to 20 years going to school and college to learn stuff that we should be using in our lives. Yet, somehow along the way, we lose interest. Most of us start counting the days left to graduate and stop learning. I know I did, thinking and dreaming about the freedom of not having to study or do homework or worry about the examinations and their stress. Maybe it's because the way we were being taught, maybe it's because the topics we were sometimes forced to study, or the way we were being evaluated. For some reason, you lost interest. But when you graduate and start working, suddenly you discover an elephant in the room that no one talked about in all of your past learning years. That the actual learning and studying are more important now than before. Now you are more mature to make decisions about what you want to do in your life. In every job you'll choose, there will be learning required. And what will be different about learning after college is not only you will need it, but also you will want it. So, in today's video, I'll be sharing my C3 Rs rule that I used to study when I did my master's degree in occupational medicine and also in every training or course I took to upgrade myself, my career, and my life in general. We'll be talking about how the brain works and we'll cover the relationship between information and your brain's Googling process. Then we'll cover the C3 Rs rule and we'll also talk about the three enemies when it comes to studying and learning. So, how does the brain search for and retrieve information? Like Google, the more the information is used in terms of clicks and visits, the higher it ranks in the first pages. So, to increase the usage of the information you gain from reading a book or watching a video or listening to a podcast, to rank in the first pages of your brain's Googling system, you can do three things. First, use it. When you have an information for the first time, let's take how to be more productive, for example, your brain will throw it as untitled file. It doesn't need to name it because you used it only once. When you use that information again, your brain will rename that information to how to be more productive file. Second, make it relevant. When you link that information, how to be more productive, to something relevant in your life, like using it to organize your desk or create lists, your brain will change it to a folder with the same name to have more files in it. Then, when you connect that information, how to be more productive, with another field like parenting, your brain will integrate both folders, combining each folder's titles, descriptions, and tags so that they are more searchable because of the more keywords that integrated folder has now. So basically, the information went from untitled file in its first usage to renamed file when you used it again, to named folder when you made it relevant, to an integrated folder when connected. Also, think about a picture you download to use. First, you don't bother renaming it or changing the download location because you used it once. When you use it again and again, you start renaming it to find it easy. Then, with more usage, you may have a folder for it like pictures. Then, if you're using it here and there, maybe you move that folder to another bigger one like project assets that also has your music and video folders. The bottom line is to make anything you learn or study memorable, use it more, make it relevant, and connect it with other fields. Now, moving to the C3 Rs rule and the three enemies we have: the thief, the con, and the murderer. C is for capture, happens in day zero. This is the first layer you do when learning and studying. You capture the ideas and material from any source you learn from. The tool I recommend for this layer is mind mapping, and I talked about it in my other video here, so make sure to check it out. Basically, from studying perspective, the difference between linear formatting and mind maps are: with mind maps, you have one page for the topic, and with linear, you have three or more. Brain likes images when storing, and mind maps are better images than the linear ones, assuming you can have the topic in only one page. Your brain, like search engines, loves keywords when searching, and mind maps are based on keywords unlike sentences in the linear formatting. Like I said, check that video on mind mapping to know more about its uses, values, and how to create one the right way. So, now that you captured all the needed information into one mind map, now your first layer is over and you can relax. The next day you have the first R, which is reflect. This is day one. In this day, you have three purposes to do with that mind map you captured the previous day: to make it simple, to make it relevant, and to connect it with other fields if possible. For making it simple, you can ask yourself, can you explain it to 10 years old child? And how many branches in your mind map have sentences rather than keywords? If you're using sentences, then it's a sign you're not fully understanding this part yet. Using keywords, 1, 2, or 3, is a sign of understanding. For making it relevant, what area in your life can you apply this knowledge to? For connecting it, what other areas or fields of study you can integrate that information with? An example would be learning about personality traits. Can I explain it to my child? Or do I have keywords only in my mind map? I also can make it relevant by using it to evaluate my family, and I can connect it with another topic like intelligence and how can both affect one another. In this stage, you'll come face to face with the first enemy, which is the thief. Here, it will try to steal your focus somewhere else rather than spending time reflecting, clarifying, and connecting the information. And it shows after a few minutes from starting something. So, the way to fight it is to do this reflecting step in multiple shorter periods rather than one big period. Studies showed over and over that reflecting on material for less time is improving the learning quality. The ideal here is to take 30 minutes and then 5 minutes break. This is not a solid number. Everyone is different in terms of vulnerability to distraction and the ability to sustain focus. So, play with this number. You can increase it for up to an hour if you're productive, but not more. Moving to the second R, which is recall. This is day 2 to 3. In this stage, you recall the information that you captured, then reflected on. Recalling is basically remembering what you have studied, and there is one specific tip to make it effective and fight the second enemy. This tip is make recalling active, meaning you shouldn't be reading or seeing the mind map when you're recalling the information. Doing that, reading your book or seeing your mind map while recalling, gives rise to the second enemy, the con. What it will do is to trick your brain into thinking that you already know this information when you see it or read it. You will tend to move fast or flip the page believing that you have that one covered when in fact you don't. And the only way to protect yourself against that con enemy and validate your belief is to do the recalling actively. And there are several ways you can use to recall actively. You can mind map it again from scratch. You can explain it out loud to yourself or others. You can solve tests about it. And you can imagine being examined about it and you are answering. Well, not to that extent. This process of active recalling using one or more of the previous ways should take around 10 to 15 minutes. Then you analyze yourself, like comparing both mind maps and see what's missing, or identifying the areas that you weren't competent in when explaining or answering questions about. If this is the case, then you move back to the reflect step to identify the reason. If it is not clear, then make it by reading more or asking. If you simply forgot, then it's okay. It will be covered in the third R, which is repeat. This is in day 6. In this stage, you repeat the recall step and you start this step on the 6th day and you repeat it occasionally. It can be weekly, bi weekly, or monthly, depending on the complexity of the topics and the quantity of the studying you have. Safe option is to repeat it weekly since it's only for a few minutes per topic. So in 3 hours, for example, you can repeat recalling many topics or entire branches. Again, this is just me, and sometimes I make the repeat every month. Neglecting this stage will give rise to the third enemy, the murderer, to show up and erase the information you spend time capturing, reflecting, and recalling. The way it does that is by waiting for the right time. That's why it shows after a few days, and it erases only few information at a time, so you won't notice their disappearance. Clever, right? To protect yourself and your information, you must ink them over and over so that they become unerasable or at least demand more effort from the murderer to erase them. That was my C3Rs rule I recommend for studying. I hope it works for you, and I'm happy to guide you through it personally. And if you'd like that, just send me an email at toolkittoimpact@gmail.com and I'll get back to you. Until we meet, keep learning, keep integrating, and keep upgrading your life.